Hi, I'm Sel Davison from Humble Grove, a workers' cooperative making video games. Recently, we revealed our new game, A Line Held Tight. I wanted to talk about our approach to making it, what we're doing and why, the visuals, the music, the writing. What's it all in service of? A Line Held Tight is a dynamic sci-fi visual novel that follows the Canary, a member of the mining colony on a far-off planet. Out there, cut off from the rest of humanity by a vast expanse of space, tensions both political and personal start to rise. As a strike boils over, you will help the Canary decide where their heart and their loyalties lie. A branching narrative weaves its way through deep tunnels of mine to meet the characters within, as outside influences make themselves felt. A Line Held Tight is a game about a miners' strike, capitalism, and labor mechs. In the year 3100, in humanity's furthest reaches into space, workers are mining fuel with heavy machinery known as rigs. The rent on a nearby colony is rising, the workforce is short-staffed, and megacorporation Brightworld are the ones to blame. It might sound like I'm joking, but in complete seriousness, the idea for this project germinated in my mind with the thought, what would it look like if Arthur Miller wrote a Gundam? And what if we moved away from the genre's traditional focus on military conflicts? I want to know about the mini-mechs, often in the backgrounds of Gundam movies and shows, and more about the labor mechs in Patlabor, utilitarian mechs piloted by the proletariat. With those thoughts percolating, I decided to lift the three-act structure from Miller's A View from the Bridge in order to write a story about masculinity and class struggle. We're a team of three people, Poppy Tilbury, Beck Michalek, and myself. We're making the game in Narat, an open-source visual novel/interactive fiction game engine. Poppy is responsible for the technical side of things, all the Narat-specific scripting, and building the features like the database that compiles all of the mechs in the game so you can read all the nerdy specs. Beck is the lead writer and artist. All the wonderful hand-drawn charcoal panels are drawn by them. I'm project lead and the secondary artist, and I'm the editor for the text in the game. As visual novels tend to be, A Line Held Tight is very text-heavy. At the time I'm writing this, the word count stands at 130k. And by the time we finish it, we expect it to be a lot higher. With that in mind, we wanted to make sure A Line Held Tight had a strong visual identity too. Despite the limits that come from making a visual novel with 2D art, we wanted to make sure the player feels though they're inhabiting Brightworld Mine, a place with a distinct character. Even though the player doesn't literally walk through the mine's tunnels, in a way you might if it was a 3D environment, we still want them to feel like they have, and for the people they meet in it to have their own distinct personalities expressed through their portraits. The portraits are inspired by Frank Auerbach's charcoal portraits. He used a technique of drawing and erasing the entire thing multiple times. Doing this would leave the ghostly impressions of the previous drawings. I've lifted this process for the portraits in the game, and I really love the effect. How it captures my own thinking over time. I think it has a way of making the portraits feel more dynamic. We use the panels to fill out the details in the world, call attention to action, and of course to show off the game's mechs. They often make scenes feel more kinetic, especially when accompanied by sound. Since the backgrounds aren't hand-drawn, the panels do a lot of the work that, say, painted backgrounds might do in a more traditional visual novel, building out a sense of place. Our backgrounds are made using photos, some of them taken by us and some that we found under Creative Commons, that we've then photoshopped and drawn over. In order to make them feel more alive, we've tricked them into believing they're 3D, and then added lighting, particle, and fog animations in Blender. I'll make a video about this process in the coming months. A Line Held Tight soundtrack is being recorded in-house by Beck and I. It's made up entirely of traditional folk tunes from around the British Isles and other parts of the world. I think using folk tunes provides the game with a more down-to-earth feel, adding some warmth to the setting that would otherwise feel overly techy. While this is a story set in the future, it's also about a struggle that exists now and has existed long before we were all born. In terms of instrumentation, Bet plays the guitar and I play the mandolin. I'm also trying my hardest to play the melodeon. We're both involved in our local folk scene, regularly attending folk sessions and running a beginner's session together. Most of the tunes on the soundtrack are collected from musicians at sessions in the local area, some of which would doubtlessly invite to guest on the soundtrack. You'll have already heard Dan Capon playing recorder on the trailer music. If you're not familiar with folk tunes and would like to hear more, contemporary bands like Leverett, Shovel Dance Collective, and Goblin Band are fantastic places to start. Our games are narrative first. Everything is in service of the story. Given that, it might not surprise you to hear we're huge world-building nerds. The setting of the game is one started developing working backwards from another game we've been working on, Twilight Array, currently unreleased. Twilight Array is Beck's baby, and the two of us have been expanding and developing on the world together. One of the ways we approached world building was through the tabletop RPG Microscope by Ben Robbins. Inspired by actual play podcasts like Friends at the Table, we used Microscope to develop a timeline for the world. One of those points along our timeline was about a series of union struggles. I became really interested in exploring this period in our world in more detail, and zooming in on one in particular, the post-frontier miners' union, and its merger with a larger union, Riggers More, and the consequences that followed. Align Held Tight is also a game about choice. Choices that drive action, choices that drive conversation, and how the choices you make affect the central struggle. As in real life, how you choose to treat people changes how they feel about you, and how you act is remembered. You can expect conversations that go in entirely different directions depending on your earlier choices. The Canary isn't a complete blank slate. They have their own flaws and ways of viewing the world, but there's also a lot of room for expressing what kind of person you want the Canary to be, as well as the kind of person you want them to become. But why did we choose to write this story specifically? Well, to me, it just feels inevitable. Over the past 5 years, we've seen tens of thousands of layoffs in the games industry. Over the last few decades, we've seen a rise in fascism, a decline in workers' rights, as well as a decline in living conditions. We witnessed world powers inflict violence and genocide, and the role tech has played in that. We pledged not to accept funding from or publish our future projects on Xbox/Microsoft services over their involvement in Israel's genocide of the Palestinian people, and we encourage other developers to do the same. I'm not sure what other game we'd be making right now. Making Align Held Tight wasn't a conscious choice to make something socially or politically relevant, and we certainly don't expect to change the world with it. There's just no way to avoid the current climate for making its way into what games we make. Hopefully, some of what I've talked about resonates or excites you. I'm really excited for people to play Align Held Tight, and you can expect it to be released towards the end of this year. Thanks for watching. We plan to make some more videos about the process of making the game, and hope you enjoy them.